Ever wake up from a nightmare, heart just pounding, like something dark and sinister is still, clinging to you?
Oh, yeah.
I bet you have that feeling, right? That it's
Yeah.
that unsettling blend of fear and fascination. It's something H.P. Lovecraft bottled and poured into his writing. He's the man who gave us cosmic horror,
Mm.
the master of dread. And you've definitely encountered his influence, even if you don't recognize the name right off the bat.
Yeah, what's fascinating about Lovecraft is that he didn't just write about monsters, he seemed to pull them straight from his own nightmares. Like, he had this incredible ability to tap into our deepest fears, those primal anxieties about the unknown and the unknowable.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today, exploring how Lovecraft's own troubled life, especially this recurring nightmare that haunted him, fueled his creative process. We'll unpack not just the stories themselves, but the man behind the monsters, H.P. Lovecraft, an author whose life was as strange and unsettling as the tales he spun.
Right, and he was born in Providence, Rhode Island in the late 19th century, and his early life was marked by tragedy and instability. His father, plagued by mental illness, was committed to an asylum when Lovecraft was just a child.
Wow.
Later, he lost his beloved grandfather, a pivotal figure in his life. And his mother, also grappling with mental health issues, was eventually institutionalized.
I mean, imagine the impact of that. The weight of those experiences on a young mind. It's no wonder that themes of loss, isolation,
Yeah.
and a lurking sense of madness permeates Lovecraft's writing.
Yeah.
He lives with this constant awareness of the fragility of sanity, the lurking darkness just beneath the surface of everyday life.
And that darkness wasn't only metaphorical. Lovecraft himself suffered from a terrifying condition, sleep paralysis. He would wake up fully conscious but unable to move, often accompanied by horrifying hallucinations.
Oh, wow.
Imagine the terror of being trapped in your own body. Your mind is aware, but your physical self unresponsive, while shadowy figures loom in the corners of your vision.
It's like something straight out of one of his
It
stories.
is.
And in fact, it was. This experience directly inspired one of his most chilling tales, The Outsider. The story follows a protagonist trapped in a decaying castle, cut off from the world with no memory of his past. He's surrounded by shadows and decay, living in a state of perpetual darkness.
Yeah, that sense of isolation, of being imprisoned within both your mind and your environment, is central to Lovecraft's work, and it mirrors his own experiences with sleep paralysis. But the truly terrifying part of The Outsider comes when the protagonist finally escapes the castle.
He stumbles into this grand celebration, a scene of light and merriment. But the moment he steps into the light, everyone reacts with absolute horror. It turns out that the protagonist, the one who thought he was trapped, was actually the monster all along.
It's a brilliant twist, and it speaks volumes about Lovecraft's own feelings of being an outsider, of not belonging. This fear, this deeply personal sense of otherness,
Mm.
was something that he grappled with throughout his life. And it found its way into his writing in powerful and disturbing ways. He took his nightmares, his anxieties, and turned them into art, making us confront the monsters lurking not just in the shadows, but within ourselves.
Yeah, it's like he took that feeling of waking up from a nightmare and just
Oh.
stretched it out, made it linger long after you've opened your eyes. It's unsettling, but genius.
Exactly. And this sense of creeping dread, this cosmic horror that Lovecraft so expertly crafted, it wasn't just born from sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
Another recurring nightmare fueled his imagination. One where he found himself trapped in this black, slimy ooze.
Yeah.
It's a visceral image, the kind that sticks with you. And it became the basis for another one of his most famous stories, Dagon.
Dagon. Okay, so in Dagon, we have a World War I sailor who escapes a German ship, thinking he's found safety only to end up on this newly risen island, a landscape that emerged from the depths of the ocean.
And this island, it's covered in the same black, slimy ooze that haunted Lovecraft's dreams. It's a detail that's both repulsive and fascinating. It speaks to the power of the unconscious mind, how something as simple as a texture can evoke such strong feelings of fear and disgust.
Yeah, and then of course, there's the creature itself, Dagon. This gigantic fish-like deity emerges from the water and approaches a giant monolith. It's a scene that's both awe-inspiring and terrifying, hinting at the existence of ancient powerful beings beyond our comprehension.
Right, and the story ends on a bleak note with the sailor descending into despair and addiction, haunted by what he's seen. There's this underlying sense that humanity is insignificant, a mere plaything for these cosmic forces.
It's interesting that both The Outsider and Dagon tap into this idea of hidden truths, of things not being what they seem. In one, the protagonist discovers he's the monster, and in the other, the sailor stumbles upon an ancient and terrifying reality hidden beneath the waves.
Right, that's a recurring theme in Lovecraft's work. The idea that our perception of reality is fragile, that there are layers of existence we're not meant to see. It's a deeply unsettling concept, and it's one of the reasons his stories continue to resonate with readers today. We live in a world where information is constantly bombarding us, where the line between truth and fiction can feel blurred. Lovecraft's work taps into that anxiety, that fear of the unknown and the unknowable.
But his writing isn't just about fear and monsters. There's also a sense of wonder, a fascination with the vastness of the cosmos and the strange beauty of the unknown.
Absolutely. Lovecraft's descriptions of otherworldly landscapes and cosmic beings are incredibly vivid and evocative. He had a gift for language, for creating these rich, immersive experiences for the reader. He could transport you to another dimension, a place where the laws of physics and logic no longer apply.
And that brings us to the more complicated aspect of Lovecraft's legacy, the fact that his brilliance as a writer was intertwined with his own deeply flawed personal beliefs.
Yeah, it's a challenge for modern readers, isn't it? How do we reconcile the power and influence of his work with the knowledge that he held racist and xenophobic views? It's a question that has no easy answers.
Some people argue that you can separate the art from the artist, that you can appreciate the creativity while condemning the prejudice. Others believe that it's impossible to truly engage with the work without acknowledging the context in which it was created.
It's a conversation that's been happening for decades, and it's one that's likely to continue. What's important is that we're having the conversation, that we're not shying away from the difficult questions.
Because ultimately, Lovecraft's work, for all its complexities, continues to fascinate and influence us. He tapped into something primal, something universal about the human experience, the fear of the unknown, the search for meaning in a vast and indifferent universe.
And that's what makes him such an enduring figure. He forces us to confront not just the monsters in the shadows, but the darkness within ourselves, the parts of us that we might prefer to keep hidden.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the mind of H.P. Lovecraft, I'm left with a question for you. How do you navigate the tension between artistic brilliance and problematic personal beliefs? Can you separate the art from the artist? Or is it all inextricably intertwined?
Yeah, it really does linger. It's like staring into one of his cosmic abysses, feeling both drawn in and repelled at the same time.
Exactly. And I think that discomfort is part of what makes engaging with his work so important. It forces us to think critically, to question our own assumptions about art and the artists who create it.
It's not about condoning his prejudices, but about understanding how they might have influenced his work and how that work continues to impact us today for better or worse.
Right. And it's about recognizing that this tension, this struggle to reconcile beauty with darkness, is something that exists throughout art history. Lovecraft is just one example, albeit a particularly stark one.
His influence is undeniable, though. From literature and film to music and video games, Lovecraft's tentacles have wrapped themselves around so many aspects of pop culture. Yeah, think about the movies of John Carpenter. The strange, unsettling atmosphere of The Thing, or the creeping dread in Prince of Darkness, or the video game Bloodborne, with its gothic architecture and nightmarish creatures lurking in the shadows. Lovecraft's fingerprints are all over them.
It's like he unlocked a door to our collective subconscious, unleashing these primal fears and anxieties that we're still grappling with today.
And that's the thing about great art. Even when it's born from darkness, it can spark important conversations. It can make us question, challenge, and ultimately maybe even understand ourselves a little better.
So next time you encounter a monster in pop culture, a creature that embodies the cosmic horror Lovecraft so skillfully crafted, remember the man behind the myth, the man who turned his nightmares into art, who gave us a glimpse into the unsettling vastness of the universe and the fragility of our own existence.
And if you're intrigued, or maybe even a little disturbed, we encourage you to explore Lovecraft's work for yourself. We've included links to some of his most famous stories in the show notes.
Dive in if you dare, but be warned. You might never look at the shadows the same way again, and let us know your thoughts. How do you grapple with the legacy of H.P. Lovecraft, the man who dreamed up horrors we're still trying to understand?
We'd love to hear your take on this complex and challenging topic, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive, where we'll be exploring another fascinating and thought-provoking topic, guaranteed to make you think, question, and maybe even lose a little sleep. Until then, happy reading and sweet dreams.